In the annals of ancient Rome, few figures loom as large or as defiant as Spartacus. He was a Thracian gladiator who dared to challenge the might of the Roman Empire itself. What began as a desperate escape by a handful of men escalated into a full-scale war. This audacious rebellion swelled to an army of 120,000 slaves, gladiators, and dispossessed outcasts. For 2 years, this formidable force brought the Roman Republic to its knees. The very foundations of Roman power trembled under their relentless advance. Rome, the undisputed master of the Mediterranean, faced near collapse from within its own borders. The question that echoes through history is profound. How did this unprecedented uprising happen? How could a group of enslaved men threaten the world's most powerful military machine? The answer lies deep within the brutal world of Rome's gladiator schools. These were not merely training grounds, but veritable killing academies that forged the very men who would ignite the greatest slave revolt in history. Understanding these institutions is key to comprehending Spartacus's extraordinary challenge. The gladiatorial games were far more than mere entertainment for the Romans. They evolved from somber Etruscan funeral rituals, where blood sacrifices honored the dead, into massive public spectacles. These events became an integral part of Roman civic life and identity. By the late Republic, these games were colossal productions, drawing vast crowds and consuming immense resources. They served as a powerful tool for ambitious Roman politicians and generals. Sponsoring lavish games was a direct path to public favor and political advancement. The games also held significant economic importance, fueling a vast industry. From the training schools to the arenas, a complex network of businesses thrived on the public's insatiable appetite for combat. This obsession with blood sport shaped Roman society profoundly. At the heart of this industry were the gladiator schools, known as ludi. The district of Capua, south of Rome, was a primary hub for these institutions. It was here that the infamous school of Lentulus Batiatus, Spartacus's owner, was located. These ludi operated as private enterprises, run by a lanista or owner. They functioned as businesses, acquiring, training, and then renting out gladiators for public games. It was a lucrative, albeit morally dubious venture. Daily operations were relentless and brutal. The schools acquired their human inventory primarily from prisoners of war, condemned criminals, and enslaved individuals. These men were then subjected to intensive training regimes designed to turn them into efficient killing machines. Despite the harsh conditions, the schools also provided medical care, albeit rudimentary, to protect their valuable assets. The goal was to keep the gladiators alive and fit for combat, ensuring a return on the lanista's investment. The world of gladiatorial combat was highly specialized, featuring a diverse array of fighter types. Each gladiator had a distinct combat style, specific armor, and unique weaponry. This variety added to the spectacle and complexity of the games. Examples included the heavily armored Murmillo, often paired against the agile Retiarius with his net and trident. The Thracian, like Spartacus, fought with a small shield and a curved sword called a seeker. These specializations demanded mastery of specific weapons and tactics. Beyond mere fighting prowess, showmanship was crucial for a gladiator's success and survival. The crowd's favor could influence a fight's outcome, even determining whether a defeated gladiator lived or died. Gladiators were performers as much as they were warriors. Lentulus Batiatus's gladiator school in Capua was a formidable and self-contained compound. Its physical layout reflected its dual purpose as a training facility and a prison. It was designed for both efficiency and control. The school featured extensive training areas, including a large courtyard for drills and practice bouts. Living quarters were typically cramped and communal, housing the gladiators in austere conditions. Security measures were paramount, with high walls, locked gates, and armed guards. This fortified environment was a constant reminder of the gladiators' captivity. Every aspect of the layout was intended to prevent escape and maintain strict discipline. It was a world designed to break men down and rebuild them as instruments of entertainment. Spartacus, the central figure of the revolt, was a Thracian by birth. He was likely a former auxiliary soldier captured by the Romans, or perhaps a free man enslaved for some transgression. His background suggests military experience before his enslavement. He possessed not only formidable fighting skills, but also a compelling charisma. This leadership quality would prove instrumental in uniting disparate groups of slaves and outcasts. Spartacus was more than just a warrior. He was a natural leader of men. Alongside Spartacus were other key figures who would become leaders in the rebellion. Crixus, a Gaul, and Ennomaus, another Gaul or German, were prominent gladiators from Batiatus's school. They formed the core of the initial conspiracy. Later, figures like Gannicus and Castus, also gladiators, would rise to prominence within the slave army. These men, forged in the crucible of the ludus, shared a common bond of oppression and a burning desire for freedom. The training regime within a gladiator school was incredibly rigorous, designed to hone the human body into a weapon. Diet was carefully controlled, providing the necessary calories for intense physical exertion. Gladiators were often well-fed, a stark contrast to many slaves. Physical conditioning involved relentless exercises, strength training, and endurance drills. Weapons practice was constant, with gladiators learning to wield their specific armaments with deadly precision. They trained with wooden weapons against a wooden post, known as a palus. Medical care, though basic, was provided to ensure the gladiators remained fit for combat. Injuries were common, and the ludus had its own medical staff to treat wounds and illnesses. A healthy gladiator was a valuable asset. Life in the ludus was a profound process of dehumanization. Gladiators were considered property, mere commodities to be bought, sold, and exploited. They were branded, often on the face or limbs, marking them as belonging to their lanista. They were forced to take a solemn oath, the Sacramentum Gladiatorium, pledging to endure burning, binding, beating, and death by the sword. This oath symbolized their complete submission and the loss of their former identities. They were no longer men, but gladiators. Yet beneath this brutal facade, resistance and solidarity often simmered. Gladiators, sharing their grim fate, sometimes formed underground networks. They offered mutual support, sharing information, and planning for potential escape. The shared experience of oppression fostered a powerful bond among them. This solidarity, born of desperation, would ultimately fuel their audacious bid for freedom. The ludus, intended to break them, inadvertently forged a collective will to resist. The oppressive conditions and the constant threat of death fueled a desperate conspiracy within Batiatus's school. In 73 BCE, a core group of over 70 gladiators began to plan their escape. They meticulously strategized, waiting for the opportune moment. Their initial goal was simply to break free and acquire weapons. They knew their chances were slim, but the alternative was a life of servitude and a likely death in the arena. Freedom, however fleeting, was worth any risk. The conspirators gathered what meager resources they could, including kitchen knives and spits. These improvised weapons would be their first tools in their fight for survival and liberty. Their determination was absolute. The breakout was a chaotic and violent affair. The gladiators launched their desperate bid for freedom by raiding the school's kitchen. They seized knives, spits, and anything else that could serve as a weapon. Overwhelming the guards, they fought their way to the armory. There they seized proper gladiatorial weapons and armor, transforming themselves from desperate escapees into armed warriors. The school was plunged into pandemonium. A mass liberation ensued as more gladiators joined the fray. The initial group, now better armed, fought their way out of the fortified compound. They left behind the brutal confines of the ludus, breathing the air of freedom for the first time in years. The escaped gladiators, now numbering around 70, immediately sought refuge. They made their way to the formidable slopes of Mount Vesuvius, a dormant volcano near Capua. This natural fortress provided an ideal defensive position. From this base, Spartacus and his lieutenants began to transform their band of escapees into a disciplined fighting force. They recruited other slaves and dispossessed peasants who flocked to their banner, eager for liberation. Weapon acquisition was a priority. They raided local farms and villas, seizing tools that could be repurposed into weapons. They also ambushed Roman patrols, capturing their arms and armor, steadily equipping their growing army. Mount Vesuvius became more than just a camp. It was a symbol of defiance and a training ground. Here, Spartacus instilled military organization and discipline, turning a desperate mob into a formidable fighting machine. The Roman authorities initially underestimated the threat posed by the escaped gladiators. Praetor Gaius Claudius Glaber was dispatched with a small militia to contain the uprising. He besieged Spartacus's forces on Mount Vesuvius. Spartacus, demonstrating his tactical genius, executed a brilliant surprise attack. His men fashioned ropes from vines and descended the unguarded side of the volcano, outflanking Glaber's forces. The Roman militia was routed, suffering heavy losses. This stunning victory sent shockwaves through Rome and emboldened the slave army. More slaves joined Spartacus, swelling his ranks. The rebellion was no longer a mere escape. It was a burgeoning war. Subsequent campaigns led by Praetor Publius Varinius also met with defeat. Spartacus employed mobile warfare tactics, avoiding direct confrontation with larger Roman forces. He used ambushes and rapid movements to demoralize and defeat his pursuers. The slave army's confidence grew with each victory. Spartacus's string of victories attracted an ever-increasing number of followers. His army swelled to an estimated 120,000 individuals, a diverse composition of slaves, shepherds, and impoverished free men. This vast multitude represented a significant challenge to Roman authority. The army was a melting pot of ethnicities and backgrounds, including Gauls, Germans, Thracians, and various Italian peoples. This diversity, while a source of strength, also presented challenges in maintaining cohesion and unity of purpose. Spartacus's leadership was crucial in holding this disparate force together. He provided a vision of freedom and a path to escape the brutal realities of Roman slavery. His charisma and military acumen were indispensable. As the slave army grew, strategic debates emerged among its leaders. Spartacus's primary plan was to march north, leading his followers out of Italy and across the Alps to freedom. He understood that a permanent victory against Rome in Italy was impossible. However, Crixus and other Gallic and Germanic leaders held a different vision. They sought to remain in Italy, perhaps to carve out a permanent territory, or to continue plundering the rich Roman countryside. This fundamental disagreement created tension within the leadership. Ultimately, this strategic divergence led to a tragic split within the army. Crixus, with a significant contingent of Gauls and Germans, separated from Spartacus's main force. This decision proved fatal for Crixus and his followers. Crixus's contingent was subsequently defeated and annihilated by Roman forces under the command of Quintus Arrius. Crixus himself was killed in battle. This loss was a severe blow to the slave army, creating a moral crisis and highlighting the dangers of disunity. The repeated defeats at the hands of Spartacus finally forced Rome to take the rebellion seriously. The Senate appointed Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest man in Rome, to lead the campaign. Crassus was given an unprecedented 8 legions, a vast army of over 40,000 trained soldiers. Crassus adopted a ruthless and strategic approach. He understood that Spartacus's army, though large, lacked the discipline and resources of a professional Roman force. He aimed to corner and destroy them. He employed decimation, a brutal form of military discipline, on his own troops who showed cowardice. This instilled fear and discipline, ensuring his legions would fight with unwavering resolve. Crassus was determined to crush the revolt at any cost. Crassus pursued Spartacus's army south, attempting to trap them in the toe of Italy in Bruttium. He constructed a massive fortified ditch and wall across the peninsula, hoping to cut off their escape. Spartacus, however, managed to break through this formidable barrier. Spartacus then attempted to negotiate passage across the Strait of Messina with Cilician pirates, hoping to cross to Sicily. However, the pirates betrayed him, taking his payment but abandoning him and his army. This left Spartacus trapped, and facing Crassus's overwhelming forces. The dream of freedom for Spartacus and his army reached its tragic end in 71 BCE. Cornered in Bruttium, with Crassus's legions pressing in and Pompey's forces arriving from the north, Spartacus was forced into a desperate final confrontation. The Battle of the Silarus River was a brutal and decisive engagement. Spartacus, knowing the stakes, fought with incredible bravery, reportedly attempting to reach Crassus himself. His forces, though outnumbered and outmatched, fought fiercely. Ultimately, the superior organization, training, and numbers of the Roman legions prevailed. Spartacus himself is believed to have died in the battle, though his body was never recovered. His death marked the effective end of the slave revolt. The aftermath was a horrific display of Roman vengeance. Approximately 6,000 captured slaves were crucified along the Appian Way, the main road leading from Capua to Rome. This gruesome spectacle served as a stark warning against future rebellions. The Spartacus revolt sent a clear message to Rome about the inherent dangers of its gladiator schools. In the wake of the rebellion, significant reforms were implemented to prevent similar uprisings. The Roman authorities recognized the need for tighter control. Increased security measures were put in place within the ludi. Surveillance of gladiators became more stringent, and the acquisition of weapons was more tightly controlled. The aim was to prevent any future large-scale conspiracies. The very nature of the gladiator schools, while still brutal, was re-evaluated. While the games continued, the potential for such institutions to breed rebellion was now acutely understood. The memory of Spartacus lingered as a cautionary tale. The Spartacus revolt left an indelible mark on Roman history, offering crucial military lessons. It demonstrated the vulnerability of even the most powerful empire to a determined and well-led insurgency. The tactical brilliance of Spartacus was acknowledged even by his Roman adversaries. Beyond military strategy, the revolt held profound social significance. It exposed the deep-seated tensions and injustices within Roman society, particularly concerning slavery. It highlighted the constant threat posed by a vast, oppressed population. The cultural memory of Spartacus has endured for millennia. He became a powerful symbol of resistance against tyranny and oppression. His name resonates through history as an icon of freedom and rebellion. Archaeological evidence continues to shed light on the world of gladiators and the revolt. Discoveries at sites like the Gladiators' barracks in Pompeii provide insights into their daily lives, training, and equipment. Skeletal remains offer grim evidence of their brutal existence. From ancient Rome to modern times, Spartacus has inspired countless works of art, literature, and film. He remains an enduring figure, a testament to the human spirit's capacity for defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. His legacy continues to inspire freedom movements across the globe,